Welcome to the Not Superheroes Gets Dads podcast. No, we can't fly. No, we can't shoot lasers or pick up giant buildings. But what we can do is help set the foundations for our families, be present for our kids, and combat generational cycles. On this podcast, we dive into everything dad related, from the struggles we deal with as fathers to what our favorite thing to barbecue is. Hello, I am Sean Laurie. I hope you guys are doing amazing today. Like always, right? Make sure you subscribe, share, tell a friend, right? The message actually. I got a message the other day, which I appreciate. My boy Brian definitely said, it's been helping him. So I appreciate you, Brian, everyone that's ever reached out, man. You guys know I always appreciate the support. Now, with that being said, guys, I always say I'm always excited, right, when I have a guest, but this is very special to me because he was actually my first mentor. But he's so much more. He's a father. He's a husband, entrepreneur. I think he even had music at one point, so he could sing too. I'm not gonna ask him to sing, but he can sing too, and he has so many different talents. But Jonathan, how you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm great. I'm blessed, grateful to be alive. Like I was saying earlier, the greatest time to be alive in history. Man, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I've been watching in the sidelines for a while now, so just want to tell you up front, very proud of your consistency, keeping this thing going. It means a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, I like to do a little icebreaker, so it's not gonna be nothing too crazy. Um, but to my knowledge, I remember you said, um, I think you said for a majority of a part of your life, you grew up in Michigan, right?
Yeah, Michigan, the Great
Okay,
Lakes. Yeah.
the Great Lake. Okay, so I wanted to ask you, either as a kid or whatever, maybe when you were a little bit older, what was probably the most difficult time for you growing up? And then as you look back, you appreciate that actually occurred.
Bro, all of it was difficult. All of it. Growing up in Michigan, all of it was difficult. I grew up in Berrien Springs, Michigan, which most people have never heard of. Berrien Springs, Michigan. Small little, the village of Berrien Springs. Now, the thing about it is that it was also a university town. Andrews University's there. And so it was
Okay.
a melting pot or a salad bowl of people from all over the world. But when I came, I was one of the uh, first African or in that community. And so you're thrust in a community where not too many people look like you, uh, eat the foods that you eat, all that stuff. So it was pretty much a lot of culture shock, and the community grew and expanded and diversified over a few years, but still it was a very very interesting space to be in. Trying to figure out who I was, how I fit in the mix, um, and everything that comes with that. The only cool thing was that Muhammad Ali lived in the neighborhood. So he lived down the
Really?
street, literally like a mile down the street from where my parents live right now is where his estate was. And so every now and
Wow.
then you see Muhammad Ali, jogging in the neighborhood when his health was still good and all that kind of stuff. So it was cool. It was but it was hard to grow up in Berrien Springs. But I'm sure just as hard as anywhere else. What it taught me was the benefits in the when I look back is I learned to appreciate diversity of culture. I learned to really understand uh, where people's perspectives, how their perspectives are shaped, and so
Mhm.
it was good in that side.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
pretty dope. So
yeah.
so that actually so is that how I guess in a sense then it did I'm kind of tying the two together, but your upbringing and your family, because right, I think going from Africa to Michigan, right, and dealing with all those different adversities, like, did that also help shape your business mindset? Because I'm looking at like because of that, you probably became a better leader. Because of that, you was able to understand other cultures because you was hoping they understood your culture.
Yeah, so that's funny you asked that. I my parents are my parents came here in early '80s. '84 is when
Mhm.
we came to America, and at that time they they're on student visas. They can't work anywhere really except for the campus that they're going to school at. Not too many opportunities, and in order to like really make ends meet, they ended up working on the fruit farms where a lot of migrant workers south of the border migrant workers were working at. So every summer we're out there on the fruit farms working, picking tomatoes, picking strawberries, picking blueberries, whatever you may think of it. And Ronald Reagan passes an immigration bill that allows those who are migrant workers to receive citizenship and everything, or receive their papers. So my parents got their immigration papers worked out, but because I was born in a different country than they were, which was at the time when I was born, was still a British colony. You talk about colonizers. It was still a British colony, if you will. It was Rhodesia at the time, and then it became Zimbabwe. And the way that the colonist government did is that they didn't put your mother's name on the birth certificate. And so the U.S. government was like, yo, we can't really prove that this is your child. So I was left out of status and illegal for many years. And it's funny because I literally still keep this to this day. I still have my Social Security card. I'm going to show you my Social Security card. I'm going to cover up the numbers here so y'all don't,
I'm like, don't put the numbers up there, brother.
selling my information. But this is my Social Security card, right? I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
Let me focus it in there. But it literally is stamped not valid for employment.
Wow.
Is the stamp that's on it. And so, yeah, because I could not go and get a job at the Dairy Queen and McDonald's and all these other places, I ended up creating little businesses to make extra money for myself, whether it was selling candy, whatever it was, so that whole experience shaped entrepreneurship for me, in that if you can't work in the system, you got to create your own system so that you can, I'll have some candy money or whatever it was that you needed.
Yeah. Wow, that's actually amazing. The fact that you had that mindset. Now, how though? Because again, I did mention how you are talented with music. Were you able to combine the two, or how did you kind of, or was it hard for you to even leave music and do the different things you're doing now, or how did that were you able to intertwine that? How did that play out?
So musically, like my family's very musical. My uncles, my grandfather. I mean, like there are a lot of musicians in the family. Music is just a part of life and everything, And but I wasn't necessarily serious about it until I met a girl that I had a crush on, and she was all about music. So I was like, you like music, right? I'm gonna get you some music. And I started a little band, and kind of fell in love with music in that process. When I got to college, now mind you, so like again, I'm here, graduated from high school. I don't have my papers right. I'm still technically, I have no status. I'm illegal. Okay? My friends are all talking about which college you're going to. And I'm here looking at myself like, one, in order for me to get into college, I can't get a Pell Grant. I can't get any type of funding. I can't get any student loans because I don't have status. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so luckily, in some loophole way, I get into a college in Nebraska, and still it's like, how am I going to pay for the semester and everything? And while I start going to school there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start another little band over here. And I somehow, somewhere, in the course of time, convinced the VPs of Advancement's office to sponsor the recording of a record. Right? So I recorded a CD with this band I started, had the school pay for it, right?
Wow.
And I told them that they can get sponsorship rights, all that kind of stuff. But so we record that album and start selling CDs and all that, performing different places. And then I went on and created a contract with the school, with the university, that for every performance that we performed, we would mention that we are part of this school, so that in order to recruit more students. and they would pay us, each member of the band, $500 per performance. So
Wow.
we're selling CDs. I'm also, we're booking gigs Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So in a weekend, we might do $1,500 in like, pay to each of the members. It was so like, it's kind of like, music paid for my college in a sense.
Wow.
And we went on, and I went on to sell 25,000 records as an independent artist. Got approached by a label to sign on to a label deal. And when I looked at the numbers, I was like, I've made more money as an independent artist than I'd have made if I'd gotten a gold record signed to a
Wow.
label.
Wow.
So that was a cool thing. But from then on, I went on to produce and help a lot of different artists. Some of those artists were able to use the strength of those records that we made to get deals with Matthew Knowles' entertainment company. Another person went on and did some stuff on Broadway. I mean, it was a lot of cool things. I've never left music. I'm always doing something musical in the back of my head or somewhere. But it just, I think that there was this limiting belief that music was more of a hobby than it was like a really something serious that I was really pursuing. I wanted to do something more in the business world than to actually be an artist. And I did that I toured. We did touring in all those things. I think that in the end, after a few years of doing that, I was burnt out and I wanted to go a different path. But still in the back of my head, now I vicariously live through my son and his music, and wanting to like really, really set him up for something greater. Yeah.
So I love it. I love it, man. So like you said, like you was doing music and then it was something, I mean it's still with you, but you end up going in a different lane. So
Mm-hmm.
with that, like what's the biggest you feel like as you was going through this journey, finding different things, which is one that's just amazing to me, like since you were little, right? You're like, okay, they literally said I can't work, so I'm going to create my own lane, right?
Right.
So um, but with that, I'm sure came a lot of setbacks, a lot of frustration, like right. So, what's the biggest lesson you think you learned um, in that journey as a business or entrepreneur? I guess at that time, because I'm sure you were still trying to figure that out. But like,
Right.
maybe what do you wish you knew when you first started to go in that, especially and obviously in high school, elementary, or whatever, you're still learning, but in college and as you really starting to network and really understand certain things, what is something
Right.
you wish you knew when you first started?
I think I wish, if I look back on it, I wish that I'd have given up my preoccupation with the need for things
Mm,
to be fair earlier.
mm,
You know, for some reason, I think a lot of us believe that the world is supposed to treat us fair, and we want to demand fairness. But if there's anything that's not a a um uh a given in life, is fairness. Nothing is fair. If you want something, just know that the odds are going to be stacked against you. You know,
mm,
and those odds are not necessarily uh things that are pressed against you for the purpose of keeping you small, but rather they are challenges to help you become and overcome, and really, really get into a sense of like, oh, this is what I'm made of. This is what
mm.
I can do, because without resistance you can't grow. So I wish I'd have given up that need for things to be fair earlier on, and come to the understanding that the algorithm of this planet is set up to to like keep you at a status quo level, and anybody and anyone who overcomes must accept the fact that it's going to be real and it's going to be hard. You know what I mean? And that's every aspect of life. If you think
True.
that marriage is going to be fair and just going to be nice roses and dandelions and skittles and all that kind of stuff, you're going to be in for a shock. You know what I mean? If you think that raising kids is just going to be easy, you're going to be in for a shock. I mean, especially if you have more than one child. Your first child does not prepare you for your second child. That's another level. The third child, another level. It's like a video game, you know. There's always another boss to hit. So yeah, man, I just feel as if, like, if I'd have been okay with that, like, that, like, understand, like, this is just part of the game. You just got to play it. You got to just show up. Also, the other part of that is the if I wish I would, if I could go back, I wish somebody would have told me that I should never assign difficulty to a task or project before I've tried it. Sometimes you look at something and say, I'm not going to do that because that's hard. How do you know it's hard if you haven't tried? How do you know you know what I mean? Because you sometimes do something, you accomplish something, and you realize, oh, that was not that hard. I just didn't know better. But now that I know, it was easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's, in short.
No, no, I like that. So I was gonna, I was gonna ask you, like, because right, there's fathers listening right now. They're like, man, that sounds amazing. How can I be adaptable though when I have a family, but I have this idea or I have this business model I want to do, but I have a family. I always say, like, at the end of the day, you know, it's not about excuses, it's about how we can make it happen, right? Um but how, in that mindset, like, for you, obviously you've been in that world for a while, but for you as a father of four, just like me, right? How do you adapt, and how do you continue to growing, especially like you said to me, how are you even growing in today's business world? I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, big question there. If I understand correctly, as a father, how do you adapt to take on new opportunities, knowing that you have other responsibilities? Um,
Yes.
I think that there's something in terms of understanding if the thing that you're going after, is it a worthy ideal that is congruent with supporting a family? Is it in alignment with the vision and the direction that you're purposing to take your family on?
Mm.
Assess the risks. Is this going to be taking me out of purpose in terms of, because when I look at my life right now, I I've come to a realization that before children, right? So you get married and you think that you love somebody, you're responsible for that person, right? And all those things. But then when you have children, you realize that, oh, it's no longer really about me. Even though it is about me, it's not about me. It's about me in the sense of, like, how I show up sets them up. So I've got to make sure that I am, if I want them to be go-getters in life, how am I modeling being a go-getter? How am I modeling how I handle faith and fear? Because they're seeing all those things, and that's being passed on to them. A lot of my experiences and a lot of my attempts at things I've done in my life, I can link back and say, you know what? I saw someone who was faithful. I saw someone who took risks, maybe not the same type of risk and not the same type of, a different type of faith than I have to take, but still I had a model for that. Additionally to that, I've also come to a realization that there are things that I am, that might be my destiny, like, something that's like, it's something that is inside of me, but may not necessarily manifest in me, but it'll manifest through me, through them. So I have to make sure that what I'm doing is congruent and in alignment to manifesting that destiny, either in me or just through them. And just to give you a biblical link to that, the call of Abraham did not come to Abraham first. It came to his father, Terah. Terah was the one who God called first to go to the unknown land. But then he died, and then the call comes to Abraham, and he actually accomplishes a journey. Moses is called to bring his people to the promised land. He brings them to the edge. He himself doesn't get in, but the promised land is manifested through him. He didn't get to see the promised land. He only got to hear about it. David was called to build a temple that he never worshiped in. It was for someone else. You know what I'm saying? So like I always realize that like when it comes to being a father, be congruent with what God's call is on your life, and also be okay that you may not never see the fulfillment of that call, but it might come through your children. So it's very important that you're still pursuing your big God calling, even if you're facing resistance, because it may be that you're just the bridge that fulfills that call.
Ooh.
So
That's
that was a
good.
lot, but
No, I like that answer. And as people don't even probably know because I don't think I mentioned it, but as a pastor though, right? How has your faith played a role in your business decision and your leading style? Because you mentioned it and you even broke it down in scripture. Like, is it something you definitely live by? Is it something like is your business decisions maybe based on just, hey, this is a great opportunity? Like, how do you kind of navigate through that? What part does faith play in those two things for you?
it's the only thing that has that plays anything into it. You know what I mean? And I'll say this, bro. Like, it's not. And hear me when I say this. The question is not, as a pastor, how does your faith play into it? That's just a flippant title or the calling. You know what I'm saying? Faith has nothing to do with ministry. It has to do with for it to be authentic. It's not about as a pastor, as someone who has been called by God, who's obedient, who's following God, right? Faith is just as difficult to like work through for me as it is for the next guy. You know, pastoring doesn't. You can be a pastor and not need faith, but you cannot be a Christian and not live without faith.
You
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to be straight leaning on God's guidance, leaning on His direction. Understand that you may not know. And the thing about God is that God is interesting in that I need to have a blueprint. I need to have a plan. And the way that God works is that, hey, follow me. Where are we going? Just follow. Go to this land. Where are we going? I'll show you when we get there. Bruh, that's a lot to like just say, okay. And then you now got to go and enroll your wife and your kids and the people around you into something that you literally are just following blindly. Like, we walk by faith and not by sight. Try to explain that to your wife. Like, hey, where are we going? God just says that He's going to provide. How? So faith is the ultimate. I have this phrase that I say is that the walk of faith is a miracle in action. And so you cannot necessarily experience miracles, blessings, signs, and wonders, and all those amazing things that God promises until you are in motion towards it. Anthony Rudolph, right?
Yeah.
Anthony and I, one time we were driving, or we were in the office, and his car was giving him problems. And he's like, bro, ride with me to go take this thing to the dealership so they can look at this thing, right? And so we got off the we got on the 91 freeway, started going down to Adams, to the auto circle area there. And as we got off the off ramp, his car started puttering. Like it was like, okay, this thing's about to die. And so got off the off ramp, made the left turn, and then the car dies right there on the overpass. Wow. Right? So now we're backing up traffic. People are like, upset and whatnot. And we're just sitting there. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? And it was like one of those hot Riverside summer days, like it was 104 degrees. It was hot, bro. So when as we were seated in the car, nothing happened. Nobody stopped to help. Nobody stopped to check in. They were just upset that we're making traffic. We were clogging up the system. And I think that there's a lot of folks who when they're faced with a challenge, they kind of just sit there you know?
Mm,
And so I was like, all right, bro, I'm going to get out and start pushing,
mm,
right? So I get out of the car and I start pushing. The moment I started pushing, like literally, I get out the car and start pushing. Dude who passes us goes in front of the car, goes and parks his car, comes back and starts helping me push. And there's like 5 guys now helping me push, and we push this thing all the way to the dealership, right?
wow.
And I was like, interesting. The moment that we got into motion to go towards our goal, heaven sent resources for it to help. As we were seated in the car for a good 20 minutes, nothing happened. Nobody helped. But the
Mm,
moment we got into motion, the miracle took place.
mm,
So I think that a lot of times we folks are just waiting and saying, I'm believing, I have faith, I have faith. Well, your faith is dead without works. Get out there and start pushing that car, and the resources will follow.
mm.
So
That's good.
I always know that, like, yeah, when I'm believing for something, heaven will always send resources or shut the door when I get into motion for it, towards it.
No, I 100% agree on that because what you said is so true. So many times, especially now in the microwave society, right? We want things instantly, and we don't necessarily want to put in the work. So I'm a big believer on creating our own momentum,
Yep.
right? And so what you're saying is, man, I definitely agree on that. And so I want to ask you,
You just said something that's very, very amazing, though.
yeah,
Creating your own momentum.
hmm
Here's the thing about it. Momentum sometimes requires you to manufacture the passion before it's actually there.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
you got to create your own momentum, and once you get it, you know what I'm saying, it happens. But folks sometimes think that momentum just kind of happens out of nowhere. Like, oh, the momentum showed up. Nah, somebody had to crank that well to get it going first.
yeah.
I love that you said that.
Yeah, man. No, that's something I definitely believe in just in my life. Every like you said too, right? Going, when you share that story, because hey, where you going? Like when I'm telling my family, hey, we're gonna go to Texas. Wait, what's in Texas, right? And so, and now to
Texas is
see
big.
it is big, right? But to see how like God is starting to like put different things in motion, and it's like kind of crazy.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean it was easy. It's still been a lot of ups and downs. Still, some obstacles, but it's just been amazing to kind of see God move in that sense.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you like, how do you balance then being, bro, a husband, a father, an entrepreneur without feeling overwhelmed, especially with you having 4 kids and being like, like I said, my previous mentor, but I'm sure you're still a mentor to so many people. Like, how do you not get overwhelmed with that?
Um. So this is probably not going to be very popular to most people.
Sure.
The most balanced people that I know
Mm-hmm.
are the least successful people.
Mm.
Um, an athlete that is a championship player is not balanced. They're in the gym way more hours than the average person who does have
Mm.
balance, who does have a
True.
good time. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, I like if you were to ask me, am I balanced? How do I balance? I no longer pursue balance
Mm.
because balance just means that everything has to get some sort of equal or some sort of allotted time. What I
Mm.
subscribe to more is harmony. I prefer harmony over balance. Um, think about a band. You know, you've got the drums, you've got the bass player, you've got keys, you got guitar, you've got saxophone, you got the singers, you got all these different organ, extra keyboards, and all that kind of stuff, and they're playing at the same time. And depending on the instrument, one might sound louder, one's just staying in the pocket, keeping the rhythm going. You know what I'm saying? But all of that is blending into an amazing sound of harmony. And so
Mm.
I pursue harmony more than I pursue balance. And sometimes that means that like just using the band illustration, sometimes it means that the drums have a solo, and then the keys have their solo, and there's different parts where each something has to highlight over the other, but still it's all in harmony. Um,
Mm.
and I kind of going back to like, being congruent, being in alignment. And so there's seasons where one aspect, maybe the church is busier, maybe the
Yeah.
business is busier, but as long as I'm maintaining harmony, you know, um, uh, it's easier, or it's more bit better to manage it that way. But because I've tried that whole thing of balance, and when I looked at my mentors and different people in my life, they're like, no, it's not balanced. Our heroes, Kobe was not balanced.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan was not balanced.
Yeah.
Jesus was not balanced.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, they wanted him to like, Master, you should come, you should slow down. And he's like, no, my work, my food is to do the work of the Father.
Mm.
Now that's not. Let me go ahead and put a little disclaimer there. If you are living a life that's not in harmony, do not take this and say, it's okay for me to neglect my family, to not, be there, to not be present because I'm pursuing my goal. No, 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 no. Bring them along for the journey.
Mm.
Because if you don't bring them along for the journey, it's to like, what it is that's how what God's called your family to do. They'll resent that which you're working on. It's where you'll find folks who hate their parents' business. They hate the ministry. They hate what they do because it represents time away. It represents the block and the wall that's being built,
Mm.
between that relationship, because you're not doing it in harmony. You've literally you fired the drummer and the bassist because all you're focused in, and that's, I don't know if that's making sense at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. Because it's funny you said, because I was just about to ask, like, because I'm like, okay, someone might hear that, be like, all right, Jonathan, you know what? I'm leaving my wife, my kids. I'm about to pursue this right now, right? But like you said, it has to be, in harmony. Now, I want to ask you though.
You're breaking up the band if you do that. You're breaking up the band. There's no more harmony.
Well, what if they're thinking, hey, I'm gonna go solo once I make it, right? I'm gonna be 50 Cent, right? I'm gonna be 50 Cent, and then I'll bring you guys along after, right? So
Hey, if you're 50 Cent, just make sure that I'm not Lloyd Banks.
true, true.
You know what I'm saying? Let me be Tony Yayo or somebody.
Someone
Keep me
that's
on the
always like,
payroll.
true, true. So, well, then I
Now,
want.
as a pastor, I don't even know how that works. I've never heard of 50 Cent, 50 Curtis, Curtis Jackson, Curtis 50, whatever his
That's
name
not.
is. I don't know those people.
Now, then I was gonna ask them like, so have you? Because you said like harmony, but have you been not all the time? It probably just happens every now and then. And for someone that's listening, so they might have a better idea how to handle it. Has there been maybe moments, not all the time, but moments where the family responsibility and maybe your business demand clashes, right? How do you handle that? Like when they both are needing different things from you around the same time.
Hmm. So you lean on God, man, because that happens more often than not.
Mm.
None of this is a perfect prescription of like, how it flows out. Um, that's where you got to have a lot of grace for yourself and good communication, you know, because it's an ebb and flow,
Mm.
you know, it goes back and forth sometimes. And it's not um, it's not necessarily a science. It's more of an art, because
Mm.
the science comes sometimes like you just put in the ingredients and it pops out this way. But balancing, having that harmony within the family structure of business, family, ministry, being a man, being a husband, being all those things, you're gonna mess up, you
Yeah.
know, and being quick to apologize and to recognize where you're not fully showing up and to own that mess,
Mm.
um, it's okay to have a strong ego, but please do not have a big one.
Mm.
You need to have a strong ego, but if you have a big ego, you won't listen. You won't pay attention to your body. You won't pay attention to the people around you that are they're really, really, they're trying to serve you, trying to help you be better. It's okay for you to have self-interest, but please don't have self-absorption.
Mm.
Because then you will just it won't help anybody. So
I like that.
yeah.
No, that's good. So then what so would the advice then be like you said, there's not necessarily not really no balance, but would the advice for someone that is trying to be an entrepreneur but wants to kind of prioritize their family, is it something um where they just might be like, hey, you know what, Johnny, I can't make this football game. I'll try to make the next one. Is it just kind of picking your spots, and so you're not necessarily completely like deserting them, but you also are trying to build that life that you want, whatever that life is, right? You're trying to build that life for your family.
Right. Um, that's a good question, man. You know, you said a word about prioritizing, and I think having priorities is very important. I like to reframe it though and just say, hey, look at it more like a circle. Okay, God's at the center,
Mm.
because when he's at the center, he's never going to be, oh, God's my priority, he's number one, and then your work is busy, so now he has to be number two, or your
Yeah.
family. No, but keep him at the center. He's at the center. Then there's my family. Then there's the business, ministry, friends, everything else. But as long as like what is supposed to be at the core is at the core, it's easier to make decisions. So
Mm.
uh, if I have a business opportunity that's very important, that serves the core, serves God, serves my family, serves everything else, and my son has a soccer game,
Hmm.
well, I got to go back to my circle. Is a
Mm.
soccer game is me being at the soccer game more a priority, or how is this decision serving the center and the outer line circle of my life? And that helps me make better choices, better decisions, um, around those frameworks. Because priorities, they shift, they shift. I like to put priorities more of like my tasks and things that I have to do.
Mm.
And but there's not a single person on this planet that I know of or have met that loves their to-do lists, their priority their list. But
Yeah.
we do love our circle, and if we can,
Mm.
like, make decisions from that circle, it's easy to juggle the priority list and the task list.
I like that. I like that. Now I have three more questions for you. The
Make them easy, bro. These have been hard. Your
hey man,
questions became hard, bro.
man, look, look. I know you're top notch, so I had to, I'm trying to come with it, man. I can't give you no easy ones. You want to hit out the park, you know what I'm saying? So, now for you, just not for no one else, strictly for you. How do you define success? And I'm not even just talking about in business, just in life. For you,
Mm.
what does success look like for you, for Jonathan?
For me, success is the journey in the pursuit of a worthy ideal.
Mm.
Because I found that once you get it,
Mm-hmm.
the goalpost moves.
Mm.
So enjoy the pursuit and the journey, and learn the lessons along the way. You know, I remember I had a goal to buy a certain type of a car. I got that car, and within a month, I was over it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's like, all right, cool. What's next? You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So, um, if you can be in a space where you're creating an experience and enjoying the journey, the growth, the and being present to who you're becoming along the way, the goals, the stuff, the accolades, whatever it is, they're never going to satisfy. But what you'll be very, very aware of and what you'll appreciate is more of like what you've become, the impact you've had on the people as you're on that journey, um, and the experience more so than it is the, you know, whatever it is. You can have a goal, say, oh, I'm going to go get a degree in XYZ, you know, get my master's. And on graduation, like for me, I'm not talking for anybody else, for me in my own life, that graduation moment's like, oh, I did it. Now what? You know, and after so many times of being in that space where I did it, now what? It's like, you know, it's not as great as I thought it would be. I've learned that, like, okay, screw the actual emblem of whatever the trophy. Forget the trophy. It was never about the trophy. Who did I become? And what did I experience on the journey to getting it? Because that's the real joy. You know, whose life did I impact? How did they impact me? What are the lessons I learned? You know, I think the only goal, the only trophy reward that will ever satisfy human souls will be when you face God and He's like, "Well done, good and faithful servant." That's the only time that you'll be like, "Oh man, I made it. I did it." It's satisfying. But everything else on this earth realm, you're gonna get to it and be like, "Oh, okay."
True.
You know, and just give you an example. You remember? I know every guy has this experience. At least you know, guys I roll with. You date the finest girl at school. You finally get her to go on a date, and then you're like, "There's got to be somebody finer." You know what I'm saying? It's like you get the job, and it pays you that, you know, that. For me, it was big for you to get a job that pays you $14 an hour. Yeah. At some point, you know, and then you realize, that ain't that much money. We need more. True. Okay, I gotta get 6 figures. You get 6 figures. You're like, I'm making 6 figures now. Dang, more money, more problems. You know, so who are you becoming along the way, and is it affecting the ultimate goal of that well done, good and faithful servant? Now enter into my joy. That's where it's at. That's where the real satisfaction of ever achieving anything is going to come from. So sorry to get all super theological, spiritual, and
because you didn't realize you just gave me a live right now, so I'm about to come and dunk it right now. So
all right, come on.
You just said that, like, you know, you're so many different things, and in that, right, there's going to be missteps, there's going to be victories, there's going to be losses, there's going to be things that people are going to tell you should have did this better, you should have did that better, or you did a great job, or I would have did like this. So in that journey, as you continue to grow and accomplish amazing things and helping different people, in that, who have you become? Who has Jonathan become in that journey?
Bro, I'm still becoming, number one. I've not arrived. I was having a conversation with a brother of mine earlier, and he posed a question to me about a decision I made a few years back, and it was a bad decision. You know what I'm saying? It's on the surface, it was an obvious bad call, you know. And he says, he asked me, do you feel bad about that? Do you feel like it was a wrong decision? And I said to him, I was like, bro, it was a wrong decision, but it was also the right decision. It was the right decision because I'm like, my bad decision affected you, but it made you change and make better decisions, make better choices. So you got rewarded through me as a case study. You know what I'm saying? And you pivoted and shifted some things in your own life in order because you got to see firsthand how it affected me. And so, was it a bad decision? Yes, but it was also a right decision because look at how it expanded me, how it humbled me to realize that, yo, I'm not all that in a bag of chips. I need the same type of grace, and I need to grow. And there's certain things I was not born with all-knowing knowledge. I have to learn.
Yeah.
So who am I becoming? I'm becoming uh anybody who says this usually is lying, but or is being arrogant. So I'm going to sound arrogant right now. I'm becoming more humble
Mm.
in the process, um, more willing to listen,
Mm.
less judgmental to someone else's plight.
Mm.
You know, embracing my failures more as not things that are to put me into shame, but to put me into a space where I get to learn and I get to impart that wisdom. The wisest people are not people who. Let me rephrase that. Let me say it this way because it's from experience of like with talking to folks, and I've been in rooms with people who are successful and celebrated internationally, and
Mm.
it's always funny when you get to an intimate space with them where they're not telling you about their wins. They're
Mm.
telling you more about their lessons through failure, and that was more meaningful to them. And so here I am. I'm like in a space where I'm more uh, okay with where I missed it, where I screwed it up, where I didn't make the right call, and learning to make better judgment calls because I now have experience.
Mm.
And so um, I'm becoming I'm becoming more, but understand that I'm less.
Mm.
You know,
I like that.
so yeah.
No, I like that, man. And so this is the last one. This is the last one.
Mhm.
This will be a little easier. um, what values um do you hope to pass down to your children through your work and through them seeing the examples that you're already doing?
The biggest values I hope to pass on to them is God is all, God is everything, and you're not in this on this journey by yourself. You're on this journey with God. Um, and if you align with His purpose, with His will, with His call, you will never be disappointed. You will never be put to shame. And every dream, every idea that comes from Him that it placed on your heart, all of that stuff is possible.
Mm.
It's 100% possible. Um, go for it.
Mm.
Do it. Fear no man, but fear God.
Mm.
And fearing man, a lot of our attempts in life are based on what will they say? I will look stupid. If I fail, who's gonna laugh at me?
Mm.
And all those things. It's always like, horizontally centered because we place so much platform and standard and excellency in how people deal with us. So don't have a fear of man, but have a fear of like one day it's just gonna be you and him.
Mm.
Nobody will co-sign for you. There'll be no witnesses because he saw it all. And so when he says, hey, you knew I was there for you. You knew I called you to this. You knew that I was going to take care of every step along the way. All I needed was you to have some courage and some faith.
Mm. Mm.
If I can pass down anything to my kids, it'll just be that. Just trust God
Mm.
and screw everybody else. If I can say it, F everyone else.
F them. F them. F them kids. No, that's something
F
else.
them. But just have F in God, faith in God. That's it.
No, I like that. I like
Yeah.
that. As we close out, man, I always like to give, my guests they flowers, and I definitely just want to thank you, man, for your time and you continue being the example not only for your family but just to so many people. I know so many people, look up to you, and you're so transparent, right? You wear your L's on you, like, hey, yes, you know what, I lost on this one, and you also share your victories, which I'm just thankful. Because honestly, people don't know to y'all. Like, um, Jonathan gave me the first when everything first started. When I had my program for the youth, Jonathan gave me that opportunity. So honestly, if it wasn't for him with the trickle down effect, I wouldn't even be doing what I'm doing now. So I'm just always so thankful for you, for just your encouraging words. Even in a little bit of time, just being able to be mentored by you, I saw so much. So I thank you for that, man. And so again, I just want to say, keep being the amazing father, husband, entrepreneur, everything you do, man. And I always see it from afar. I just feel like everything you touch, God is always in some capacity. So thank you. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too, bro. Keep going. Um, uh, I had an interesting conversation with somebody who I produced their CD years
Mm,
ago, and hadn't spoken to this person in years. And they hit me up one day, um, and they were telling me about. I guess they got featured on some TV show.
mm,
And called me up, and they're like, "John, you're in my Bible." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Yeah, if I was to ever be a Bible character, the interaction that we had would be very pivotal." And I'm like,
mm,
"How so?" You know, and they shared things that I was not aware of, never thought about, that, like,
mm,
help shape their life course. And so I say that to say that, like, you know what, as much as I've, you know had been a blessing or it had impact on your life, just know that you're in my Bible too.
mm,
Because the things that you're doing somewhere along the way, and there's so many people, just by doing this broadcast here,
mm,
someone is being blessed, someone is having a mind shift, someone's having a perspective change, someone is being blessed through your efforts. And again,
mm,
as I said at the beginning of the podcast here, um I am completely blessed by your
mm.
consistency, because you've been at this for a minute and you have not given up. That speaks to me, that blesses me, that encourages me, that gives me more hope, more faith. So keep on,
Thank
keeping on.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. And like always, you guys, you don't have to be perfect, but you always have to be present. I'll see you guys on the next one.
All right, man.